So when we got to the place where, here's the things, the titles will require you to live up to the title.
Yes. Yep.
When you are wife, husband, father, mother, these titles will demand from you what it requires.
Walking in it fully.
Right. Because you have communicated to the person you're connected to that you will be this father, this type of husband, this type of man, this type of wife, this type of woman. And then, but if you are not dealing with what's going on with you, those unresolved issues of your childhood will come in with a bowling ball and knock down all the pins in your life that you have set up. And it won't be a demonstration of you scoring up. It will be a demonstration of how much you're going to lose. Hey, my people. Hey, how are you? Dang it. No, welcome back to the Shattered Whole podcast, where we talk, feel, and heal by doing what? Acknowledging our hurt, claiming our healing, and living as a new creation. Listen, this episode, I'm letting you in the room.
Come on here.
Okay? I'm letting you in the room, and letting you in the room of my marriage for a short period of time.
I love it.
For a conversation that will, I believe, bless, release, and engage you in a way like never before. And I can't talk about my marriage by myself.
Nope.
I have to bring on my husband. Come on here. Listen, you have, if you have been watching all the episodes, which I hope you have, you saw that DJ Leighton J, also known as Leighton Jones, was on our previous episode of An Unheard Heart, where him and my brothers came on and really just like opened up about what it is to share their heart and emotions, and in a place where it's really not easy to do so, or a skill that was shown to them as available and accessible to them, right?
Indeed. That was a fun episode.
It was good. My eyes was open. I promise you that.
We peeled the layers back.
So. Yeah, we did. Yeah. But for those who was like, hey, I didn't see that episode. I don't know who this man is outside of you telling me that he's your husband. Can you introduce yourself, my love, and tell them a little bit about you?
Okay. Well, professionally, it's DJ Leighton J, but my name is Leighton Jones. I am of course, Samora's husband. I'm a father. I like to think that I'm a great brother, great friend. Of course, I DJ. I've been a DJ and producer for over 20 years now. I also do web development. And I love Jesus.
Come on, resume.
Come on. So, those are all of the things in a nutshell, and just some of them all at the same time.
Yeah. And so much more than all of the titles, which we really had an opportunity to learn. So I know I always tell you guys like the title of the episode. This one came from as we were talking through the idea and like how do we kind of put it in a bottle. I feel like Holy Spirit was on my producer.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
for sure. Because he was like, we didn't say that. I was like, I did not say that, but that's it, sir. That's it.
Turned out to be exactly what we needed. It was good.
And it was like recovery after the crisis, right? Yeah. And here's what I love about this episode.
Yes.
Right? I was like, you guys know that I am an emotional restoration coach. And I told you guys from first episode, which means that I have something to be restored from too.
Come on here, because it doesn't make sense otherwise if you didn't.
How can I tell you about the after if I ain't never been in the before?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was something that we did not come into lightly, because sometimes you can share something publicly,
right, with
individuals and with people, and then they try to weaponize your vulnerability. But guess what? Guess what? We are God-centered and united together.
Absolutely.
And with that, we recognize that it is too valuable to keep our testimony to ourselves.
I was just about to say that.
And part of it is we wish that we saw some demonstrations of the tools that we have been able to function in ahead of time, so that it didn't feel so impossible when it was time for us to do it, but it was possible. So in order to know about the recovery, you got to know about the crisis.
Absolutely. Listen,
right?
The crisis, we have been married for some time. And one thing to say, I guess, being married brings out, God will use marriage to bring out some things, right? So for me, my insecurities from my past were like brought out. Things that I had been struggling for decades, for years, were just like brought out and kind of put on Front Street. Insecurities about identity issues, selfishness, anxiety, kind of bled into so many things for me. And, just keeping it, getting straight to it, I stepped out of my place as head of the household. And that brought me to, it brought me to a place where I had to deal with myself head on. And, over time, I had to get back to where I was supposed to be, and deal with the things that I had been running from, that had been affecting my marriage, had been affecting me as a father, had been affecting me as a friend and as a brother. So,
and just as a man.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
There are experiences that we go through in my life. On this podcast, I have shared being molested as a child and the domino effect that has had
for sure
on the experiences that I've gone through in my life, especially like on my mental and on my mind, and really understanding if I was worth much of anything. It makes it hard when you are dealing with the effects of abuse to believe that you're worthy and that you are better than the situation of your experiences.
Yeah.
A lot of times we allow our experiences to be our identity instead of our experiences to be moments of time that we go through.
And that's exactly what happened. Like I was, molested as a child, and that's something that caused me to have identity issues, right? And even to question my sexuality, So, and then because at the time I believed that I had to hold it all in, right? That I didn't have, anybody to talk to about it. So that followed me from childhood into my teenage years, into adulthood. So now I'm this adult dealing with these issues, no way to talk about it, to let it out, and I'm not even thinking that's a solution. I didn't think that I could do that. I was just thinking that, okay, well, I just got to hold it.
Right.
I just got to deal with this.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think what ended up happening with us, we went the route of, we did premarital counseling. We did, we were really like in it and excited about it, joyous about it, excited about getting married to each other. Like we were really close friends. We were, he was my confidant. I was his, for the extent of we allowed each other to be. So when we got to the place where, here's the things, the titles will require you to live up to the title.
Yes. Yep.
When you are wife, husband, father, mother, these titles will demand from you what it requires. Walking in it fully. Right. Because you have communicated to the person you're connected to that you will be this father, this type of husband, this type of man, this type of wife, this type of woman. And then, but if you are not dealing with what's going on with you, those unresolved issues of your childhood will come in with a bowling ball and knock down all the pins in your life that you have set up. And it won't be a demonstration of you scoring up. It will be a demonstration of how much you're going to lose.
It will be an illustration of the spiral. Yeah. Right? I began to spiral. I began to literally just spiral, keeping things to myself and just thinking, hey, listen, and then I began to physically get sick.
Oh, yeah.
I physically got sick. Like I was serving on a ministry at my church, shout out to Hope City Church. And I got sick, things like that. And it was just, I just told myself, listen, how much more can I take? How much more can I just kind of sit here with this? Like sitting here with this, dealing with this, it's all me. It's all up here. It's all in my head. There's, like who do I take? Because as a man, I learned that it was common for other men as well. We just kept things inside. So even if we imploded, you still got to keep going, right? Well, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what happened. We had I went away for a weekend of celebration and for a friend's birthday. And I came back and I did what I always did, I was like, hey, babe, like I missed you all weekend. We really didn't, we didn't talk like too much. And I got into bed and went to like give him a hug, and he was like, I can't do this. And I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, you don't want to cuddle? Sorry? Like what? Like I'm not sure about what's happening.
Right.
And he literally just blurted it out. And he was just like, I want a divorce.
Yeah. I believe that was my time. I believe that, okay, I believe that it was necessary. Like we need to split, because I had become so convinced that, hey, all these things I'm dealing with, you don't need to be attached to me. You don't need to be attached with me and all this stuff. I'm not in the right place. I need to get out of this place, go somewhere else. You'd be better off without me. That was driving everything that I was saying. So it was like, I knew she was hurting. It was a hurtful statement. It was a series of hurtful statements that would follow afterwards. But I believe that, listen, I'm doing this. This is right. This is what I need to be doing, because I need to get out of here. This is not where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. And I was so angry, disappointed, and hurt that it got to a place where I didn't even know, I couldn't identify my feelings. And that scared me. It scared me that I was like, cause I've been in a place of just like anger and sadness and disappointment before, but this level of hurt, I had this climax of it. I had never reached it before. I was like, oh, I got to get out the house. I was like, I don't want to kill this man. I was like, I got to leave the house. And I thank God that, like a friend was around and I could not like verbalize like what it was. I was like, I just need to get out. And what it did was that day set off a series of events that just went down from there. It wasn't like, oh, we came back together and we like, let's just talk this through. Nope. We was like, let's double down dog into this, because I wanted to understand. And here's something that I believe, like I know, like when I talk about God a lot, because I would never be able to tell you the depth of what he has done for me. Yeah. But I'm telling you, from the person that I used to be to the person who showed up in that hard space, they are night and day. They are night and day. All of these tools and different things that I'm teaching you about, that I'm telling you about, acknowledging like you're hurt, claiming your healing and living and doing, these things and all the details that happen in that. I'm telling you, even without me wanting to, those tools that God gave me activated in that time. And I was shocked by me. I was shocked by what it is that God was allowing to do in me, because here's what happened. I listened to God and I did not go off of my uncertain roller coaster emotions. Right. I did not tap into the roller coaster that my emotional state was going through. I really leaned into God, and first of all, I'm like, before I skip to that, too far into that, you did something, right, that escalated what we were experiencing and took it further into the road towards divorce. So what was...
I left. I physically left our apartment. I moved to another state. I ran as far as I could to get away from what I thought was the wrong place, right? And in that place, I experienced an abandonment of God, right? I experienced me just depending on myself, and thinking that...
Just to clarity, you said an abandonment of God. An abandonment of God. That you abandoned God.
Yeah, I abandoned... Right, okay. I abandoned God. I ran away and I said, okay, I'll get back right with you at some point, but not right now. Let me do what I'm going to do right now. And that's what I proceeded to do. And what ended up happening, because I guess I had good intentions, but what ended up, or not good intentions, intentions, like I thought it was going to be better than it was. What it turned out to be was me just spending a lot of time isolated, verging on depression, and just not reaching out to anyone. Literally closing myself off for about 3 months.
A little more than that, right?
Well, yeah,
a little more than that,
right?
And not verging on depression, in depression.
Yeah, no facts.
Because that when we, because afterwards, we talked about it. During that time, I did not speak to him.
Yeah. Our only communication was text messages.
Yeah. And I remember when we had our first conversation, he was like, Samora, he was like, I can put into one paragraph our full conversation that we've had during this time. Yeah. Because first of all, I was so grateful that I was in therapy. Woo!
Yeah.
I was so grateful that I was in therapy. and I had wise spiritual counsel. And I had my own relationship with God to lean into. I was those three pillars, I promised you, kept me from allowing the moments where my mind went left to go into. And I remember me being so angry, not even with him. I was angry with God because I have a relationship with you. I feel like I've done all the things. You know, when we start reading God our resume, right. God, I've done all the things. I've done all the things that you've told me to do. And how could you allow this to happen? Right. Or how can you not tell me that this was coming? Because it was unexpected. It wasn't like we were fighting and we weren't getting along and that this thing built up and that it was an inevitable. It wasn't that kind of thing. When I'm telling you that we were together 3 days prior, laughing, kikiing, and joking and hugging and doing all the things that we normally do, and that it shifted and my world changed immediately, we started to have to really like dive in to figure out like how we got here. And so let me rewind it for a second. That happened because I had become really, really good, so I thought, I had to keep things in. So, but outwardly, I couldn't break character. And I couldn't let anyone else know that something was going on. So I had become so good at just keeping up this appearance of Leighton, the husband that doesn't crack, the husband that has no issues, the husband that will make it happen, whatever it was, the things that I considered or had become good at, those were the things. And I said, okay. And then I had gotten to like a breaking point. And I was like, okay, why am I faking the funk right now? I need to just go ahead and leave. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And just to like clarify that so that people can kind of like place it. Yeah, and understand like how it exploded. Not justify it, but to because we had talked about that too. But understood. Yeah. And what was happening around that time, I was really just trying to like center my mind around the fact that I didn't know there was a problem in my relationship, let alone that divorce was there. I didn't know that he felt unsafe. Right. To be himself, not because I made him unsafe, right, but because he had told himself that there was no safe space to be the full authenticity of his self, flaws and all. And this is important to note that when you, and I tell my son all the time, like also talk to like my brothers about it, my friends. When you begin to convince yourself of the wrong things, because you spent so much time in isolation, so much time on an island by yourself. Self-counseling. Right? Yes, self-counseling, right? Engaging in negative self-talk, right? Because we know like the positive self-talk is great. But what happens when the negative self-talk, comes into play? That can really be damaging. So, leading up to something like this kind of explosion that we're talking about, like that's what, like a lack of therapy will do. That's what, like a lack of like reaching out to people or kind of keeping people at arm's length will do. I had become, again, a really, I felt like I was having fun becoming so good at that. I was like, man, the way I just, he tried to get in, I kicked that away. Oh, you tried to get in. I know exactly what to say to play off of what you just said and steer the conversation in a different way, in a different way, like keeping you away. Yeah, keeping you away. I have become very good at that. So, essentially robbing yourself from peace, because here's the thing: when you lock people out of being able to share, your experiences, whether good or bad,
Yeah.
You then keep yourself trapped with the poison,
Yeah.
right? And you've convinced yourself that this is the only way
Yes.
to exist until that island got too big.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so now let's just blow everything up because I don't know what else to do.
Exactly. I had one of the, when after, like towards the end of the time, I didn't know it was the end of the time, but when, Samora and I, we got back in contact, and we began to speak, have actual conversations. And I had this remark to her. I told her, I said, I didn't think it was an option for us to work
on our marriage. Right. But before we even get there, because I think that this is an important part, because there was very few people who knew that we were not together.
Okay. Yeah.
For one.
Right.
And there was a few things that I didn't allow during that period. One, I do not give permission for people to talk crazy about like my husband.
Right.
Nor would they. I have never. I've also been presented with someone to say something crazy about my husband previously, because he is a good man.
Right.
Who, I was like, who went through a time of hardship.
Right.
That was a volatile explosion.
Right.
Which, can I tell you, more people responded in shock and sadness and disappointment than they did with anger or anything like that. They were angry about the way that he did it.
Right.
But the response was, how can I be there? First of all, I am very, very grateful for my village. Yeah. I just want to say that. Like, I just want to say that.
And then real quick.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I'm also, because our village did not, like, I wasn't alienated, right? It was like, listen, the responses range from, listen, I don't like what you're doing right now. I don't like this, this isn't cool, but, the help, they tried to help, responses range from that to also to listen, whatever you going through right now, I'm here, reach out to me. And that meant more to me when I was in that place,
in that dark place. Yeah.
In that dark place, when I was in that place, that meant more to me, because it kind of showed me, oh no, you broke the glass and you threw TNT in your house, but people are still willing to, like, bro, let me help you out.
Yeah.
I get it. You just did something wild. Let me help you out, though.
Yeah. And there's something powerful when someone can see the worst of your humanity and they still recognize that you're their brother, that you're their sister, that you are their child.
Yeah.
They're like, even in this, like, we can not agree with something that you're doing,
right,
and still let you know that doesn't mean that we will abandon you. What happened was, I'm like, he abandoned everybody because he had told himself, again, with the narrative, that no, first of all, I wasn't letting you in to begin with. So you don't know who I really am. I don't know who I really am.
Yeah.
And now I've done this terrible thing. And with this terrible thing that I've done, like, I don't want to reach out to you because I don't want to face what I've done.
Exactly. It was to me, the accountability, it was beyond scary. It wasn't scary is the only word that I have to like really describe
language.
It.
Yeah.
Right. But it was scary times 100. Right. That accountability, if I thought about it too long, it would have me shaking, because I'm like, oh my God, can I come back from it? What do I do after 2 plus decades of thinking this thing and acting this way? Can I be anything else? Can I really be anything else? Take accountability for this thing? It didn't seem possible to me. So, but again, I had also been having good teaching at my church. I did have a relationship with God, and that teaching followed me.
Yeah.
Because during those times when I was in the self-imposed isolation, the teachings would come up.
Yeah.
The teaching would comes up and be like, but you know that's not right. But you know that. Like, you know what I'm saying? It would be like, well, you know God is not like, and you know that's not true. You know what I mean? Like these things would just,
you can't unlearn.
You can't unlearn what you've learned. And I've always kind of been this way. I've always been like that, where I've learned something. I can't, you know, in good conscience go against what I just learned. Man.
Right.
Like it doesn't make sense. So,
yeah,
you know, like those things would kind of hit me. And all of, like, it's so funny. Those things hit me, and then they began to hit me in intensity until I had, you know, a conversation, and and after that conversation, God was like, "See, I'm right here all along."
Yeah. And while he was having that kind of conversation with God, I was arguing. I was mad at God. I had a beef. Like, you don't know. I don't know if you ever reached this level of anger with God,
oh my God,
to where you are screaming at God in tongues,
man,
with the finger pointed, because English wasn't enough to emote the amount of pain that I was in. And I'm just like, God, you abandoned me. You let this man hurt me like this. I chose you. I followed you. Like, all the things. And let me tell you something. God said to me, this is not about you. Excuse me.
jeez,
Excuse me. I'm telling you, I was a different level
yeah,
of upset. He goes, I know you're hurting, but this is not about you.
yeah.
And what I want you to do is pray for your husband day and night. Every single night, I would go to sleep praying for my husband, not our marriage. I did not pray for our marriage. I prayed for my husband's relationship with God. I woke up in the morning. I prayed for my husband's relationship with God, not his relationship with me, not his relationship with his mother, not his relationship with people. I prayed for his relationship with God, because here's what I knew. I knew, with the call on my life and the call on his, that if he was not in relationship with God, nothing else mattered. He will be lost different. If he does not connect with his father, nothing else would matter. Because what you don't want is to get back into a relationship with someone who has turned away from God.
Right.
And here's the thing: before he left, he told me he chose.
Yeah, I did.
I chose to not follow God. And I was like, whoa. Man, one of the conversations that I had with him, I said, I don't know what's happening.
Right.
I don't know how we got here. And even if we're not together, I still love the human of you.
Well, now here's the thing. When we had that conversation,
Yeah.
the shame kicked in. Right? The shame kicked in big time. The shame worked overtime. So I wasn't even in a place to even
Hear that.
Yeah, to pull
Or
the shade
receive
up
that.
on that. You know what I mean? Like, right. Hence why it was cold, right?
Yeah.
It was cold. It was unresponsive. I didn't have anything then. So it was like the shame kicked in, and then moving away made even more, like, getting away made even more sense to me. Because it was like, listen, I made a big mistake here. Let me just go ahead.
Right. And I think it made it, when we were talking about it, the after of it,
Right.
it made it harder because I didn't respond to you with a valid reason now.
Right.
To believe, like, I didn't prove your thoughts right.
Right. And that was like the first, I think that was the first shocking thing, because Yeah, that was because you didn't react the way that I thought maybe you would have, right? So, and throughout the whole time, you did not at all react the way that I thought you would have, which is, and I think I was expecting like the blowback, expecting the blow up, expecting, like the yelling and the how could you and the finger pointing, or something along those lines. But you didn't do that at all. And that was part of what God would use to speak to me and say, no one has made you the bad guy. No one has made you the enemy. No one has made you right. No one, you might see yourself that way, but God goes, you know better than that. I've taught you better than that. You read my word and it doesn't even say that. So where'd you get that from? And then I realized, okay, culture, you know what I mean? Like had played a big role in kind of telling me that. And I had to shake that. I was like, okay, all right. I have to shake that off. It was like, that's just not true. I would wake up and be hit with these revelations. Like, oh, that's just not true. I was bugging. Yeah. And then now it's like, well, come on. I was bugging. I mean, really?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And there would be, if I would have like these really, really heightened moments and I'm like, I just need to call him because I just need to figure out. And I'm telling you, Holy Spirit was like, absolutely not. I'm not done with him yet. But here's the thing. I didn't know if we were getting back together.
Right.
I didn't know if remember, I wasn't praying for our marriage. I was praying for my husband, but I wasn't praying for our marriage. I didn't know if we were going to get back together. And can I tell you, can I be honest with you? I wasn't seeking it.
Right.
I was like, God, you're going to have to help me with trust because I didn't come into my marriage half-ass. I can cuss.
Come on.
Right? I was like, that's my big, that's my big girl crush for the day. Right? I was like, I didn't come into it. I really did like give all that I have. I really did like lay things out all on the table. Like I've done my most growth here. I've done we've been together at that point almost a decade. Like we had did all of this like growth work like together, and I trusted and I believed and I loved and I honored and neither one of us it was no perfect marriage, but it was a great one to me. Yeah. I was like, I really enjoyed my marriage. So to go from enjoying your marriage to your marriage being non-existent is wild. It is a conundrum of thoughts and emotions and things. And when you are listening, and here's the thing, I was like, obeying God above your emotions. Like, and then God tells you something like, I'm like, this is not about you. I'm not done with him yet. What I want you to do is obey what I told you to do. Because the reason why you have this podcast that you're seeing and the book, I wrote the book while my husband was in Florida and I was preparing for a divorce. Now
let me tell you. It was maybe a few years before. No. It was January 1st, 2nd or something like that. And I was looking on social media, right? And I began to see the advertisements, for the podcast.
For the podcast.
And I'm scrolling. I'm like, what? What is this? And I can't explain it. I ain't got the words yet, but I was like, wow. I was like, at that point, I started to think to myself, okay, well, she is picking up, the pieces, and she's starting to, and then what happened was the narrative that instantly creeped into my head was, see, look, she left. She left. Like she left. She's good with with everything that happened. She's good with it. Okay, well, she's starting a podcast. She's starting XYZ, and then that didn't stay very long. Like that narrative came and went really fast.
Yeah.
Because what was happening, again, I would receive texts, encouraging texts from my son. Right? From, literally he would just be checking on me. Are you okay? Is everything, Merry Christmas? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Things that would be flashes of light in an otherwise hard season.
Very hard. Very hard.
And for me, I couldn't believe it. I'd be like, you want to talk to me?
Yeah. And mind you,
you want to talk to me?
Yeah, our son, he's right there. Forgive me.
Just gonna talk about
I was like, I said, my son was so, I was upset that I wanted to be stronger for him. But I was like, if I don't show my humanity here, I'm going to hurt him more.
Right.
If I don't let him know that this is not okay, and the repercussions and the domino effect that happens in this kind of a hard space. Like, right. I think sometimes as parents, we try to hide life from our kids, and it's more devastating. And my son's heart is such a phenomenal thing to experience. Because he was like, don't worry, I was like, you will not be the man of the house. I was like, because you're not. You are a child and you get to be that.
Right.
And he would see me just cry. Like, I would just bawl. There would be times that I could not get out of the bed. And he would come in and just hug me and be like, you are going to be okay. And it would be times that he would cry and you are going to be okay. And this is just hard. And I would tell my son the same thing over and over again. I said, we have to feel our feelings so we can go through this.
Yeah.
I was like, we have to go through it. I was like, we can't try to push it down, suppress it. We have to feel what we're feeling now so that we can go through it. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
We would go through this space. And I remember my son saying one time, he goes, I hate that Dad is alone. I wish he knew that we were here for him no matter what he's going through. To know that he's going through what he's going through alone, that's what would break my son's heart.
Right. And that was the key, because when we spoke on the phone by accident. I'd fallen asleep on a Saturday night, and mind you, it's just me. So whatever. I was falling asleep Saturday night, and I woke up and checked my phone. I saw my phone had a missed call. So I saw it was my son. So I called him back, and he was like, hey. And I was like, hey. And I was like, I was just giving you a call back because you called me. He was like, oh, I dialed by mistake. And I was like, oh, okay. And we just kept talking. We began to talk about.
It was the first time they heard each other's voices in months.
In months. And we just began to talk. We talked about, like, things we always talk about, like movies and, sci-fi, stuff like that. And that was therapeutic for me. I didn't know how much, I didn't know how much. So that kind of began the whole thing. By the end of the conversation, like it started out kind of light like that. And at the end of it, he said, listen, I just gotta, say this. This is 15, 16-year-olds. 16. He was just like, listen, you got to get therapy. He said, how's your prayer life? I almost teared up. Yeah. I was like, I kind of made up, I made up something. I was like, oh, it's here and there. If you ever hear me say here and there,
you're lying.
I'm playing, I'm not giving you the truth. I said here and there, and he said, I think he said our church. He said, listen, because it was Saturday night. He said, listen, I want you to because the church has a virtual option for anybody that doesn't know. He said, tune in to church tomorrow. He's like, I need you to tune in to church tomorrow. I need you to get therapy, and let's stop hurting people. This is what? And I said, okay. And then after the phone call, I dropped to my knees.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And as soon as I closed my eyes, God was like, I've been right here the whole time. He said, all the things that you thought, they weren't true.
Yeah.
He said, you thought I wasn't there. I was right here. You thought you were by yourself, right? I was right here. You thought that you were in this alone. You thought you had to walk that road, all of the hardships that you experienced. He said, you thought you had to walk it alone. You thought you had to deal with it alone.
Yeah.
He said, I've been right here. And then 2 weeks after, we spoke on the phone. You called me.
Yeah. Because, so about 2 weeks later was, Valentine's Day.
Right.
And I had, got on social media for something, and I hadn't seen him like really posting like too much or anything.
Right.
He hadn't blocked me. He blocked everybody else. But he hadn't blocked me.
It was self-imposed isolation.
He hadn't blocked me.
That's
And I saw this post that he had put up, and it was a graphic for a mixtape that he had did.
Right.
And it was like
the title of it was Nobody But You.
Nobody But You, right?
It was a Valentine's Day mixtape that I had made.
And mind you, I'm like trying to like move on. I'm trying to, like do all the things. I'm trying to, not even like move on from him, because I definitely wasn't thinking about nobody else. That kind of listen. I just wasn't. But I was just trying to like be obedient, because that's really all I had. I was like, let me just do what God is telling me to do, because everything else right now, I don't have the answers.
Right.
I don't have the answers. I don't know. But what I do know is this: let me do what I know, and take care of home. And God provided in that season. I mean that I never went without anything.
The stuff that you told me,
it was
my mouth dropped.
It was wild. It was wild. And I get to, and I see this picture, and it goes, all I need is you. And it has like, it's essentially like a graphic of a text thread, right? As if all I need is you. And then the response from someone is like heart eyes, emoji eyes. And I'm just like, this man just can't stop hurting me. Like, why would he post this on Valentine's Day? And I'm just like, why? What more hurt? What more can this man do? And I had a call with my assistant that day, and I remember I was like, you know what? I am not feeling crazy today. I got up and I beat my face like I ain't never beat that joker before. I was like, slid these dreads to the side, had my curls luxurious. I was like, I'm not going to feel crazy today.
Yeah.
And I was on the call with my assistant, and we're having our weekly meeting, and we're going and we're talking. And the more I talk to her, the more pissed I get.
Jeez.
And I'm just like, I'm gonna call him. She was like, wait, what? I was like, that's it. I'm sick of it. I'm gonna call him. And I was like, gosh, you're just gonna have to forgive me. I was like, I've been listening the whole time. I was like, but I'm going to call him. And she goes, can you do me a favor real quick? Can you just before you can do that? She's like, can we pray first? Can we just go ahead and go before the throne real quick before you go ahead? Shout out to Jake. She was like, can we just go ahead and like pray first before you go ahead and make this phone call? Man. And she prayed down heaven. And she settled me down. I came down and I called him. I actually got FaceTimed him because I don't need to see your eyes. I FaceTimed him.
And I rejected the call.
And he rejected the call. And so I texted him and I was like, hey, can we talk?
And then I ran to the bathroom, put some water in my face and brushed my hair.
Because he was looking rough and I was looking not. Rough,
you know. And I answered and then I called you back.
Yeah. You called me right back.
Yeah, I called you right back. And and even in that, you had called me and I was like, I said, man, I literally said out loud, I said, all right, she's calling me. I said, listen, you got to do something different than what you've been doing before. Because I had made a practice. People would call me, my producer knows as well. He would call me and I wouldn't call him back I wouldn't call him back right away. It'd be days or it'd be like whatever. I was the avoidance guy. I made avoidance like my thing. So I decided, no, I'm not going to do this no more. Like, she's calling me, I'm going to call you right back. You can put some water on my face, brush my hair real quick, whatever. I'm going to call you back. I called her back, and then we talked.
Yeah, for 6 hours.
For 6 hours.
For 6 hours, we talked, and initially we just talked about what happened. Mm-hmm. We were like, what happened?
Yeah.
And so we were talking about that and then the effect that it had on our child.
Yeah.
And how it was really, really unfair to him and how we were going to establish a relationship that was mature for our son.
Right.
Because we didn't even know what it was like to be each other's enemies.
Right.
So, and here's the thing, I'm not with the foolishness. I'm not doing that. We're not doing this fighting thing like that. So I'm just like, how are we going to kind of exist? So we ended up being on the call that night. We did a family FaceTime, which is, here's so funny. My son, I remember just backtracking when he told his dad, this is not how we handle things. When we are having issues as a family, we have a round circle where we sit down and we talk together about whatever is hard. Right. You know what I mean? And we deal with it together as a unit. And he goes, you didn't come to the unit. You didn't come to the family and deal with it. We didn't know, what was happening and what was going on. And then full circle, we were like, in order to reinstate something new, we got together on FaceTime and had this conversation. And then the next day we called each other again. And I was like, I just need to ask this question.
Yeah.
I was like, I just need to ask this question. I just need to know how I'm going to move going forward. Because here's what I believe. I believe that the husband has the vision and the mission for the family. Right. I need to know what our mission is. Is our mission divorce? Because if that's where you're taking us, that's where I'm going. So my question to him, I was like, I just need to know. I'm not trying to make anything. Right. I just need to know if we're never going to try. If we're not, if this marriage, if that's it, if it's over. And he looked at me. Yep. And was like, I didn't even think that was an option. Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean by that? Yeah. He was like, I didn't think working on our marriage was an option. He goes, Samora, I essentially threw TNT into our house and walked away. Yep. Why would I ever think that working on our marriage was an option?
I really didn't think that. And I remember after that kind of began like a new season for me because God began, afterwards he began to speak to me, and just say, listen, I'm not who you made me out to be, like this non-caring God. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't have you in mind, doesn't have your heart in mind, and won't bless the things, that you've invested into, but it's not who I am. And when I began to realize that and began to accept it, that was when things kind of began moving.
Yeah.
For me, because I began to actually believe and have proof of, okay, no, he is who he said he was.
Yeah.
Right. He has been helping me. He helped me there. He helped me here. That track record began to pop up, and then all of a sudden things just began to change. At that point, it took place maybe over that week, and probably the next 2 weeks after that conversation, where I just said to myself, I'm going to choose transparency from now on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna choose vulnerability.
Yeah.
I'm going to choose this route.
Yeah.
Because authenticity.
Yeah.
Because what I was doing before clearly didn't get me. It landed me. It landed me in a place where it was colorless.
Oh yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. It was colorless. And just void of any life. So I said to myself, I don't want to be here anymore. Right. I don't want to be in this anymore. And God was softening your heart, and it softened my heart, so that there could be. We could meet up. We could meet up again.
Yeah, and so this is obviously it got to be a 2-parter. it got to be a 2-parter.
No, for sure.
So we went through the crisis.
Yes,
and now we really want to talk to you about that recovery.
That recovery is probably the most important thing ever.
Yeah, it is. It is the most life-living,
bounce back,
giving space that I have ever been in.
Yeah.
The joy that is in this existence of not only recovery, but thriving. Thriving.
Yes.
And we want to share that with you. So listen, I need you to come back. I need you to come back. Don't stay and only hear the crisis.
Please.
I want you to come back and hear God move, and hear two people make decisions that were hard, that were needed and necessary and powerful for what is a joyful place to be.
Yeah.
So I want you to remember that I see you, that I am listening, that I love you. God bless. And come back and see the second episode.